Today I'm making folded paper stars. Some assembly required. The other day, my sisters and I were talking on our group chat, like we do, and one of them found this big stack of old craft magazines. So she was showing us throughout the day different pictures of these, let's call them vintage crafts, that she found inside the magazines. And one of them was this one. So I thought, you know what? Let me try to follow these ridiculous directions and see what I can make with this. So I started out with a slightly smaller piece of paper than they suggested, because who has 14-inch paper at home? 8.5 by 11 is what we mostly have to work with. So I changed the proportions just a little bit, and I came up with this one. Now, the directions written down from 1980, whatever it was, were maybe not phenomenal. So I had to kind of guess in a few places, but I managed to make it work. And so I will show you how I figured out how to do it. Let's check it out. Feel free to pause if you need to go back and watch something again, because the first time that you see some of these things, you're like, what is happening here? But then if you really look at it and you see how the paper twists and bends, it's not that hard. And I also threw in some tips in there that I figured out after I made like 10 of these. So I do have a few ways to make it easier, but check it out. They're really fun. See what you think. First, you'll need to mark the measurements for 4 strips of paper. Mark along the short side of the paper to keep your strips long. For my 8.5 by 11 sheet, I'm making them 5/16 of an inch wide by 11 inches long. And you want to do this on both sides of your paper. I'm using an exacto and a ruler to just cut my strips out, but if you're planning to use scissors, you can use your pencil on this step to just draw the lines for the strips and cut them out later. If you're going with an exacto, you can slice your strips right here. Now you're going to fold your strips in half, so you'll have 4 folded strips. Now here is a really helpful tip that I came up with eventually, not at first, but I came up with it eventually. Take the open end and then cut at a little bit of an angle, and that will help you shove these strips through the little loops and holes later on. Now it's time to set up your strips. The first strip has its open end facing right, and the second goes around the first with its ends pointing up. Number 3 here goes around the second one, and its open end points left. Finally, number 4, with its open end pointing down, goes around number 3 and through the first strip. This starts to lock the strips together. And now you snug them all up close, keeping all of the open ends pointing out. Here is another tip. The magazine said to snug them up really tight, but I found if you leave a teeny little bit of wiggle room between all the strips, it is much easier for you later. Now this is the step where we finish locking the strips together. Take the top strip that's pointing up and fold it straight down. Now the top strip on the right folds over to point left. The top strip that's pointing down, it's the one on the left now, will fold to point up. Finally, the strip on the left will fold over to point right. But this strip needs one more thing. It will poke under that first strip on the way over to the right. This is one of the steps that becomes easier with those angled ends we cut earlier. Now, all the strips are pretty well fixed in place, so you don't have to be quite so careful not to move them. It's finally time to make the points on the stars. I'm going to show it a few times, so don't worry if it doesn't make sense right away. We'll start with the strips pointing towards you. Take the strip to the right and fold it behind and to the right, so the strip lines up with the ones pointing right and makes a 45-degree angle right below the center square. Now, I'm going to show you a tip for the next part. Fold the strip over the edge of the triangle, so now it points left. You can press the fold with your finger. Grab the strip and turn it over towards you, because that part will face up as you push the strip through this little slot above your triangle. Wiggle it a little bit until it comes out the other side and pull through, so it points away from you. As you pull up, it forms a little triangle below your central square. Wiggle and adjust it until you are happy with the triangle. You can kind of pull a little bit and push and squish until it's just right. You can also do this step without pre-folding it, like I just did in the tip. Basically, you'll loop the strip around so the top still faces up, because we don't fold it over this way, remember. Then, you slide the strip through and up. You'll still form a triangle, but you need to guide your folds a little bit more so the triangle has a nice point. Both methods work. You can pick the way that makes the most sense to you. When you're ready for the next star point, turn the whole piece counterclockwise, so the double strips that were pointing left are now pointing towards you. I like to work all the way around clockwise just to keep it in order and make sure I don't miss any of them. So keep going all the way around until you have 4 points. This is what it looks like now. Now, you flip the whole piece over and do the exact same thing again to make 4 points on the other side. Now, when you're finished, your piece will look like this. Now it's time to make the points that stick out from the top and bottom. These guys look a lot harder than they really are, so don't be discouraged, keep trying. Ready? Pick up the left strip that's pointing towards you. Don't fold it, we're just gonna get it out of the way. Take the bottom strip of the ones that are pointing right and loop it sort of behind and under and then around, so that the surface that was facing up is still facing up. Now you wiggle this end up under the strip that you are lifting. Sometimes it takes a little bit of maneuvering to squash it through. When you can finally grab it on the other side, pull it through. It will almost always catch on this point here, but it's pretty easy to free it. So keep pulling gently until your strip forms kind of a cone shape. When you finish this one, turn your piece a quarter turn, just like in the previous step, and make 3 more cone points. When they're all made, you can pull the loose ends to tighten up all the points until they're even and you like the way they look. If for some reason you wanted to keep the back flat, maybe you want to stick them to a wall or a present or something, you can skip this next step. But for everybody else, you flip your star over and repeat the cone step for this side. And here it is now, almost finished. The only thing left to do is trim the leftover strips to match your points. I like to do all the points on the right, go all the way around, and then flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side. That way, you can cut right along the edge of the triangle without cutting too close and slicing open your folds. We have done way too much work to let this unravel now. Ta-da! There you have it! These were all made with an 8.5 by 11 piece of printer paper. The only difference between them is the width of the strips. The smallest one used 5/16 inch strips, and the biggest was with 1/2 inch strips. 1/2 inch might be a little too big for regular paper, because I didn't have enough to really pull the strips through on the last step. They are just tucked in. But it kind of works. I was not planning to make that many of them, but they're just so fun, especially once you get over the learning curve and you're like, oh, that's all it is? I can do that. That's not too bad. Then, you just end up with like 100 of them naturally. Do you call these something else? Because I feel like there's another name for these, but I can't remember, obviously. And Google had no idea what I was talking about. So leave me a comment if you have a different name for these, because I'm so curious, but I cannot think of it. So what we tried to do is make them bigger and bigger. I got out a gigantic drawing pad. I think it was 23-ish inches long after I cut off the scraggly bits in the end. So that works. I'll put in the formula right here of how to figure out the right width. Because if you get too wide, you have to kind of just tuck the last little pieces in, and that is not fun for anybody. Once you get the steps figured out, these are really not that hard, I promise. Lily and I were making them the other day, and after we folded a couple of those triangles, she was off doing it all by herself. So you can do it too. You may have to watch certain sections again to be like, wait, what? For that? What? Because I do try to make it super obvious, but you have to be doing it at the same time. And then, oh, that makes sense. Next, another sister, believe it or not, suggested that we try to make these with ribbon. And I said, we definitely have to try to do that. So I have some thickish red ribbon. We're gonna try that maybe this weekend, and we'll post it as a short. So keep your eyes peeled for that one, because it's either gonna be really cool or a mess. Maybe both. I don't know. I think we'll probably need some glue to hold them together, but we'll try them both ways. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Definitely try it. It's really fun. And once you've made a couple, they look really cool together. I think a couple probably has a higher impact than just one. You could do all kinds of things with them. You could hang them from the ceiling. You could throw them on the tree. Ours are just kind of stuck against our little tree on the mantle. We have a lot of trees this year. But they look really cool, and I think they're neat. If you like videos like this, and you're not subscribed yet, what? You can do that right underneath the video and click all notifications so you don't miss anything. New videos come out on Tuesdays and Saturdays, so stay tuned. Until the next video, be awesome, and we'll see you then. Bye!